The N+1, global yet very local cycling podcast, brought to you by Lowlands Cycling. So let's get started. Dave, welcome to the show. Very happy to have you here. I think we will have a lot of interesting topics to talk about. And Jeff, welcome to the show too. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for joining, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you both. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So to start off, can you just tell us how you got into cycling?
I got into cycling through my father, who had done some racing in the Philadelphia suburbs and around Philadelphia in the 70s. He had vivid memories of his chrome Schwinn Paramount. And, you know, my dad was really super fastidious, so the bike was always clean and shiny, and of course it's chrome. And, you know, he picked away for years to, you know, get campy parts and all on this beautiful bike. But, yeah, he really got me into it. And doing shorter rides and then longer rides. And, you know, everybody probably remembers that point where you can actually beat your dad in something. And that happened around 13, 14, I think.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's great. So, so you raced in Europe. So how did that happen? Like, what was the transition for that?
That was post-college, had a degree, which, you know, seemed a reasonable thing to do. And had some different connections. Knew this one guy who had gone over a couple years prior to me, so that would have been probably 89. And met some people over there and a couple families. I guess, you know, 30, 40 years ago, that's what you did. You found some families to crash in on and sleep on the floor. And I found a couple of those families and was able to make that jump. And the two families we stayed in had sons who raced. The one guy took third in the amateur tour of Flanders 1 year. And the other guy was just this really strong rider who rode for the Sauna Diana team. And that was kind of my connection into that amateur team in Holland.
Nice.
Right, and then you got to the Netherlands. Do you remember which town or village or city you were staying at, or were they different?
Yeah, so we were in a town called it has a simple spelling. It's Goor, and I was told when I got over there, because you roll the G's, it's pronounced Hor, I guess, or
Yeah,
something to that effect.
mm-hmm.
So that's where we stayed. It was about 30 kilometers from the German border. So it was out in the farmlands and in the, you know, eastern part of the country.
Right. Yeah. How did you like cycling by itself in the Netherlands? Almost completely flat and farmlands and a big culture in the south of the Netherlands.
But it was very flat. Smelled like cow fields all over the place. A lot of wind. And what broke it up was, I mean, it was always cool to kind of bomb through the towns because there was no traffic in the city centers, and we'd always stop for, you know, pastries and at a pastry shop, and that kind of broke it up. You know, every 50K or 40K, you'd know there was like a pastry shop somewhere,
Exactly.
and you'd be able to stop.
Yeah. At the very end of the ride, you would stop at a cafe and you get a beer or two, right? That's all.
I memories of that, yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sauna Diana team, because there's a great story behind that. Can you tell us a little bit more, and then the listeners a little bit more about that team and what's so special about the team back then?
I mean, the team has an amazing history and some really top riders who either rode for the team or I think there was a spinoff or association with the team. Riders like Jelle Neidem and some really big names had an affiliation with the team. Eddie Bauman's, you know, guys who were great classics riders, rode the tour. So again, I ended up with this connection because of this one guy that my American friend had met when he went over to do it. He was a good Cat 1, Cat 2 in the States here, and he really just forged that relationship for me to go over. And this guy Rene De Jong, who's he's in these posters that I have, wearing bleached blonde hair. He's got the big mullet, as in all the guys. And these posters are like, you'd imagine like the Philadelphia Eagles have a team poster with all the managers and the team. Cycling's the same way, so they have these big posters. He's in those, and I had arrived like 2 weeks after they did the poster for the 1991 season. But I got the kit. I got into the team. They selected 6 riders for the really big amateur races, and I was part of that top 6. I don't know if it was because of skill. I was probably displacing a stronger rider, but again, they liked having the American in the program and the American on the team. So all that was pretty cool. Obviously, with the name Sauna Diana, it's as is our things in Europe and Netherlands, I guess, sponsored by a brothel. So in the background behind the riders in these posters, you have the little cottages and I guess an administration building somewhere, along with the Doubledecker bus, which was a super cool Sauna Diana branded Doubledecker bus that was for the race team. I was always told that the girls were way too expensive for any of the riders to ever be able to afford. At least that was the rumor. But in my experience, there was really no connection to, outside of the sponsorship, really the brothel and the riders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you got a team discount at the bottom.
Nothing like that.
So you've had the opportunity now to go back and race over there, right? When you and Matt went there?
Well, I did the Sportive. So last year we did the Tour Flanders Sportive. The Tour Flanders is far and away my favorite race, always has been. I just very attracted to the epic riders who dominated the race, rode the race. So always, part of my bucket list was to go back and do that. So positioned a lot better than I was in '91 when I went over there destitute, trying to see if I could be a pro bike racer. So went back and stayed in a nice hotel and prepared for the Sportive. We did the 114-mile route, which was basically the main route of Flanders, except it cuts out a lot of maybe the first 40K off the beginning, which is a flat run from Antwerp until you get down into the bergs and the hills. Nonetheless, we did that and had a great time. Just hitting the hills hard and big ring, and I had trained for it quite a bit with locally and doing the hills and the miles, and had really good fitness for it. So that was an awful lot of fun.
Yeah.
What are you racing? And at least Jeff told me you're doing cyclocross and mountain bike or track and racing criterion, and pretty hefty program that you have each and every year.
I juggle it with a job that takes a fair amount of hours and 2 kids and everything else going on, like most masters racers. So I think we're all kind of in the same kettle of soup. But I put a big focus on cross this year. I want to say, it's about 40 years ago that I won my first race. So I've been at it a while and kept in pretty good health, and the knees are hanging in there, and for the most part keeping it together. But really focused on cross last year. Had a good season there. Got back into track racing last year as well, so had some nice results there, and on the road. So the road has always been the base, but I really enjoyed the cross last year because that sport has grown enormously, over the past 5 or 6 years, and with all ages, all classes. The masters racing is always competitive. So it's been a whole lot of fun.
Have you seen a lot of changes with like bike technology since the 90s?
Yeah, I mean the technology has changed quite a bit. I came back in the past couple years. I had raced cyclocross with the cantilevers still, kind of hanging on to that technology, and then went to disc last year on the cross bike. And what a difference! I don't know how many seconds per lap that saves, but probably a minute if you factor in all the turning. And what a huge difference that made. And I think that helped results and everything else, cross being a sport of seconds.
Any plans now with the staying at home? Are you still training? Do you have any goals that you're setting with the uncertainty of not knowing when to race again in the hopefully near future? How do you keep motivated and training? How does that look like for you?
It's really difficult for everyone that I talk to. The motivation's really difficult. The discipline that that's involved with diet, sleep, nutrition. That's really hard. So that's gotten the better of me. Bad diet, too much beer. Like some of those things are real impediments. This year was going to be a real focus for Masters Track Nationals that were in Trexlertown, so close. Yeah. And a teammate of mine picked up some really good sponsorship. In addition, I have outstanding sponsorships through Active Yards, which is a fence company. Yeah. And they've been great. But Ocean Spray, the Cranberry people, want to get into the community and do some sponsorship up in the Lehigh Valley area. So we had really good sponsorship this year, and Track Nationals were a big focus. But the USA Cycling they're listed as postponed. They were to be the end of June. So I don't know what that looks like at this point. So now my head's starting to think about cyclocross. First weekend of May, how much do you want to train for cyclocross? Okay. How much should you be training? That's kind of the question, and what you should be doing with your workouts. Yeah. I don't Zwift, don't want to. No e-racing for this guy. Awesome. Okay. All right, sounds great, guys. Jerry, great meeting you. Maybe I'll see you again sometime.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Yeah. You two look very professional, I will say.
We're faking it.
Those headphones really aren't plugged in, are they?
No.